Welcome to the Lawyers Weekly Show for an in-depth look at the issues facing the legal profession.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Lawyers Weekly Show. My name's Jerome Doraisamy. I'm coming to you today from Camaragal Land in Sydney, and I'm very pleased to be joined in the studio by two professionals from BigLaw firm MinterEllison. First of all, we have Sam Burrett. This is his second appearance on the show, having made his first during lockdowns in 2020. Sam is the consulting lead in MinterEllison's AI Advisory team. Sam, welcome back.
Thanks so much. Great to be here.
And we also have Chelsea Gordon making her first appearance, and she is the legal lead in Minter's AI Advisory team. Hello, Chelsea.
Great to be with you.
And today we are going to be talking about some of the lessons that can be learned from the global experience when it comes to AI regulation and governance, and what are some of the opportunities for legal and consulting advisors in Australia to shape rather than simply respond to the ongoing developments in the age of AI. Guys, there's so much to talk about here, particularly with regards to a recent study tour that I believe you guys undertook to the UK. But before we get into that, tell me a little bit about yourselves and the work that you do. Chelsea, I might start with you.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I'm a practicing lawyer, so I work day to day on the legal issues, but have focused recently on emerging tech, especially issues coming out of Gen AI. So it's fascinating because in Australia we don't have one AI Act, but we have this patchwork of legislation. So I'm advising one day about privacy, the next day we might be talking about copyright, then competition and consumer law and all these different things as they relate to AI.
Yeah. And what is it about this space that gets you out of bed in the morning?
Yeah. Look, I think it's so important, especially as a parent, having kids who are going to come through and use AI. I want to make sure that we're regulating it properly and that we're really intentional about how it works. Something I often say to our clients is just because we can doesn't mean we should. So we have to really think intentionally, what are the legal protections for our privacy, but also for online safety and for our kids and how that's going to work. So that's what motivates me in the morning. But at the end of the day, I suppose the legal rigor is also very interesting.
Yeah, no, I certainly hear you on the parenting front there. Sam, tell us about your work.
Yeah, my work sits at the intersection of law and business and technology. Over the last few years, like many people, my career has been fundamentally changed by AI, not least by the demand from our clients for support across the implementation of AI, the development of strategies to use AI effectively within the business, and the establishment of governance structures to ensure that we manage the risks, as Chelsea mentioned, of AI as it continues to proliferate. And so I spend my time now advising executives, boards, and leaders in organizations with Chelsea on how we get the most out of AI in a safe and responsible way. And that's the focus of our AI advisory practice.
Yeah, and I mean, you've been very active on social media in recent years about a lot of these topics. I mean, how did you sort of land in this space?
Partly by push and partly by pull. I actually studied philosophy and English literature as my undergraduate, my Bachelor of Arts.
A natural progression.
A natural progression into AI, like many people. And one of the things I was particularly interested in was ethics, the ethics of decision making and the ethics of technology. And this big shift in the way that we use technology pre-AI in social media and consumer technology, but also in business digital transformation is something I've always been really interested in. And AI really brings a lot of these issues that have been around for a long time really to the forefront of decision makers. And so the work that we do at MinterEllison, the other reason why I'm able to do that is because MinterEllison is a law firm with fantastic lawyers like Chelsea, but it's also a consulting firm. We have about 200 people in our specialist consulting practice, and the opportunity to work side by side with technical people, management consultants, and legal experts on key issues like AI governance and regulation means that we've had some really unique experience.
Yeah. So let's talk about this study tour that you guys recently attended at the University of Oxford, I believe it was, at which, as I understand it, you were learning about some of the international approaches to AI strategy and governance. Chelsea, could you walk us through sort of how this tour came about, for you guys, and what were some of the key takeaways?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So MinterEllison has taken a leading edge approach to AI within our own business. So we're encouraging lawyers to use it and experiment and really achieve value for our clients. But then also in our work with clients, we've also been helping them mitigate risk, but also maximize opportunity. And so we saw there was a key opportunity for us really to develop a global perspective about AI strategy. And so we thought Oxford was an obvious place to go. It was wonderful to spend a week with about 40 other CEOs and company leaders from around the world, from lots of very well-known companies, exploring how we can align our AI strategy with our business strategy. Because it's no good just to go along and find a new technology and be excited by it. It has to actually solve a business problem. And so that was our motivation to go, and it was an opportunity to really hear from some of the best minds about their approach.
And just on that point about the intersection between AI and the business strategy, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds as though it would be a bit of a chicken and egg kind of thing, because it might be hard to know what the business strategy is without first understanding what are the capabilities or potentials of AI, and then the same would apply in reverse.
Yes.
So how do you I guess, look to align those two things when it may be difficult at times to know which one takes precedence?
Yes, and that's exactly what a lot of our clients are grappling with. And I think clients tend to fall in one of two buckets. They're either an AI first or a tech first company, in which case AI is going to fundamentally transform their product offering. Or otherwise, like MinterEllison, it's an established business doing something else and it's wondering how AI could help it. So I think we've got to then look across sort of three horizons. Firstly, how will it help us with productivity? How will it help us to automate the things that we're doing? But then thirdly, what are those transformational use cases which will really fundamentally change? Ultimately, I suppose none of us want to be like Kodak or left behind in a way that we haven't used the technology to transform what we're doing. What do you think about that, Sam? Was that your
totally
observation?
Agree. And this is some of the work that we do with organisations, looking at how can we take what they're already doing and, to your point, match up the capabilities of these AI systems, which are changing so rapidly. We've found that even in the last 12 to 18 months, the technology is so much better than many of us are even able to see under the hood at really specific and complex tasks. And so it's a constant game of keeping up with the landscape and applying that back to our clients.
Yeah, and to the point you made earlier about social media and privacy as well, it seems like, one of those things where as with the development and proliferation of Facebook and Instagram and all those other platforms, that the law is just not keeping up, and we all really need to be on top of that. Sam, with the with the tour that you guys attended, I'm curious to know what surprised you or even shocked you, walking away from it. Did you sort of come away thinking that, Australia is just really far behind, or maybe we're keeping pace, somewhere in the middle?
Yeah, a couple of things really shocked me. The first was how much some of the questions that we are asking at the moment in Australia are probably not asked over there. And as an example, the question about the ROI of AI. Is AI actually valuable? In the boards that we've worked with, the execs that we've been speaking with over the last 12 months in Australia, that's been a really big issue. And I think it's a good question to ask, but I would say it's considered, in the UK with a lot of the leading companies that we spoke to, that this is baseline. Yes, it absolutely does drive ROI. It's been measured. They can feel it and they can see it in their business. It's moved on from there.
Okay, so their thinking might be more advanced than ours?
Potentially. And then the second part to that, if you think that's the value side of the equation, on the governance and the risk management side of the equation, because the EU is a bit more progressed than many other jurisdictions in their regulation of AI, there is a much more structure and maturity in many organisations in terms of how they govern AI and manage the risks. And so the conversations that we had with organisations and other law firms about this area that we call AI governance or AI advisory was much more mature and full of much more people and activity than it is in Australia. I think we do have a really big opportunity in Australia to, from a policy perspective, but also from an organisational perspective, really lean in and make sure that we don't fall behind what is an international landscape that's moving really rapidly.
Yeah. We're chatting with Chelsea Gordon and Sam Burrett from MinterEllison, and we'll be back with more right after this. Chelsea, what about you? When you were hearing about some of these global experiences and perspectives, was there anything that you thought, wow, Australia needs to be doing this yesterday?
That's a Very interesting thing. I think I'd like to start with something that really shocked me and then made me think what Australia needs to do. So at one stage during our course, we were shown a robot. So it was a physical robot that was enabled by a large language model. So the robot could actually functionally choose, based on statistical probability, how to behave. And at that stage, we were able to play paper, scissors, rock with it, and it kept winning. And its capability to learn and do new things so quickly and then interact with the physical environment really shocked me. The technology was further ahead than I realised. And that made me think Australia needs to really intentionally regulate this technology, either through uplifting some of our existing laws or through another mechanism. I don't really mind how, but it made me think the technology is going to run ahead. We already have a lot of ads with virtual backgrounds. We already have AI systems that are relating to our children in character bots. Make sure we're going to regulate this carefully because otherwise it will run away from us.
There's an interesting point, though, about the pace at which Australia might be regulating some of these things, because you could make the case that Australia is advanced compared to other nations when it comes to regulating other aspects of our life, such as, the new social media ban for teenagers. So with that in mind, I'm curious to know why Australia might be falling behind our global peers on this particular front. I mean, do we know why that might be the case?
I'm not sure I would say we're falling behind, because Australia has a really sophisticated set of laws that I think is one reason why our housing prices are so expensive. We have a really great system. And for instance, only last week, the Online Safety Commissioner actually issued some legal notices to 4 character bots asking for more information. So I don't think it's necessarily that our laws are behind, but it's just that we need to really intentionally continue to build them to keep pace with the technological changes and the abilities. And maybe tech agnostic approaches are going to be great there. But yeah, I wouldn't say we're behind.
There could be a bit of a gap, which is we definitely hear from Australian businesses. You can see this in the consultation papers to the Department of Industry, Science and Resources around the regulation of AI in Australia. Businesses want guidance. They want guidance about what is safe and unsafe use of AI. And they feel that that's lacking, that there's not enough information right now. And on the other hand, as Chelsea said, we do actually have a really mature and established regulatory framework, including in industry-specific frameworks, that should guide the safe and responsible use of AI. So the question is, how do we bridge that gap? How do we ensure that there's enough guidance for organisations to understand what does and doesn't apply to their use of AI? And what we're looking for is a bit more on that.
And bringing it back to the legal profession, what have you both learned from the international experiences of law firms abroad? Is there anything that we can identify from UK-based firms or US or anywhere else in the world that can and should be applied for Australian firms here?
I think the first thing that we observed was these firms are really leaning in to AI, as we mentioned before. We saw one firm that had over 1,000 licenses for a legal-specific AI tool, and that firm estimated that they were getting a 15 times ROI on that investment. There was a huge amount of buy-in to this being really important for the future. The second thing, though, to be aware of is that many of the international firms that we spoke with are also facing some of the hard questions that we are facing here in Australia and grappling with the answers. Questions about how do we effectively train junior professionals in a world of AI? What does the firm structure and hierarchy look like in the future? There are not any clear answers to those questions, but they are things that we all need to work on together. And there's a great opportunity to share information about that.
And just further to that, any lessons from those international firms that perhaps we shouldn't be doing? Anything that maybe they've gotten wrong?
I don't have any that come to mind. In fact, one thing that I loved over there was we spoke with a number of firms who had an emphasis on teams of technologists and lawyers working together to provide services to clients. At MinterEllison, we talk about teams of AIs and humans providing services. I see that as one of the biggest opportunity areas in the future to think about what are the things that we can actually work side by side with technologists to change service delivery in due diligence or e-discovery, for example, where those areas are a little bit more mature in their technology use. There's huge opportunity for this.
Chelsea, bringing you back in here, Sam mentioned the term leaning in that a lot of international law firms are doing, and from my perspective or my vantage point, I speak to a number of managing partners at the big firms around the country, and when I ask them about the strategy and visions for their firms, moving forward, AI is one of the first things they talk about. It certainly seems as though firms, like MinterEllison, are really trying to lean in. But it sounds as though from what you guys have observed overseas that leaning in may mean different things to different jurisdictions. So with that in mind, the fact that Australian firms do seem to want to lean in, but perhaps we're not leaning in as much as we should be, what are the differentiators here?
So I think our ultimate goal is to provide the best service to our clients and to provide them access with technology that helps them get to the right answer quickly. Because, of course, that can be a really competitive advantage. If you're in a deal and you're doing a DD, if you can get to the answer quicker, then you can make a bid faster. So I think that's one motivation for a lot of the firms to really lean in. But it's not just using AI generally. At MinterEllison, we are a 200-year-old firm. So we have 200 years of learnings about how our clients work and how the law works that we can actually add to our technology stack and understanding. And so that AI can then become really specific to how we work and can help us to produce a better product. So I think ultimately it's that client motivation.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds as though what you're describing is moving beyond simply using technology to expedite things. Is about having it be a much more sort of front and center in any kind of practical operations and client service delivery, particularly for things like disputes, as you've alluded to.
Yes, I think that's true. And I think also the tech itself is good, but it's only as good as the data it's trained upon. So, and it's also only as good as the people who use and operate it. So making sure we're uplifting our AI capability within the firm to understand how to use it really well and safely. We're lawyers. We want to make sure it's safe and we want to make sure our work is privileged and it's confidential, but then also making sure we're using the technology in the way that gives the best advantage in the whole of the business, not just efficiency, but that's one of the vectors.
Yeah. Sam, do you have anything to add there?
One of our new mantras in the firm is every task, every person, every day. And we have a target of 80% of our people using AI tools that we've approved internally every single day. And the reason why we have that mantra is to demonstrate that what is so important here is an increase in literacy and understanding of these tools and how they work, because people don't talk about this, but large language models are very weird. They're very good at some things and very bad at others. And there is no list of what large language models are good at in privacy law and what they're not good at. Instead, it's up to everybody who's an expert in their area to learn the frontier of these models and understand what works and what doesn't.
Okay. Guys, I just have a few more questions for you, which we'll get to on the other side of this. So reflecting on everything we've been talking about, I wanted to ask you both, and I'll throw this question open, and either of you can go first. When it comes to shaping, the AI conversation and practical operations, rather than simply reacting to what's going on in the world around us, what practical steps should legal advisors and consultants like yourselves be undertaking? What are the first questions you need to be asking of yourselves and your law firms, and then what are those steps that need to be taken?
Yeah, we see a couple of things to not do, starting with the tool, or starting with rolling out a huge amount, access to any particular type of AI system. What you risk there is what we call the problem of 1,000 flowers that never bloom. You give all these people opportunity to create something with AI, but you never turn it into anything. And so starting with the tool is something to avoid. Instead, we recommend organizations start with strategy. One of our key strategic pillars at MinterEllison is to be a trusted advisor and a market shaper. AI is directly linked to that. To be a trusted advisor to our clients in the future, we're going to need to be able to process more information than we do now. To shape new markets, including the emerging market of AI advisory, we have to have expertise in this area. So instead of starting with tools, starting with strategy is such an important way to ensure that we're doing this correctly. And then I think it comes into governance and risk management.
Yeah, that's completely right. So then the question is, before we start implementing this technology, we need to make sure it's done safely, because otherwise that's where we're going to end up in hot water. So putting in place appropriate governance frameworks, approval processes, making sure someone's actually going to oversee that technology and they're going to monitor it. Because like Sam said, large language models are strange. So we have to monitor what they do in an ongoing fashion. I would also be uplifting your privacy settings. I would be checking your copyright settings. And at the end of the day, I would be giving really clear instructions to the people in my workplace. Have I got an AI use policy telling people how I can and can't use AI? Which systems are approved, which ones aren't? And although those things might sound simple, not everyone's doing them. And the companies that do them are the ones who are going to run ahead because people are going to be confident to adopt the tech.
Yeah. And when you guys look across the market, what's your level of optimism that law firms, big and small, are going to be not just willing but also capable of making these, these mindset shifts, these practical shifts in their day-to-day operations?
I'm really optimistic at Minters because I also see not only at the partner level, but then at the graduate level, people who are really excited and interested to understand how the technology can help them in their work. And so I think it's that individual motivation that's going to be the real shifter. And I've noticed in our interviews with summer clerks, one of the main questions is, what tech will I get to use here? Because everyone's realizing this is the way the future is going to go. I need to be able to do it. I need to be able to work with it well. So that makes me pretty optimistic.
Yeah. You've been doing this for a while, Jerome, asking questions about the profession. I'm sure you'd agree there's never been more excitement and sort of energy around technology in the legal profession and in professional services more generally. There has for much of my career been a lot of skepticism and resistance. And I think it's been fantastic to see the way that lawyers and professional service providers have genuinely embraced this, the challenges and the upside. And I see real effort in our firm and in others to do the right thing and to adopt this in a way that benefits everybody.
And just before I let you both go, for lawyers on the ground, who are listening to this, whether they're in a big firm like yours or if they're, in a little suburban practice, what guidance, both personally and professionally, would you offer to them to, make the kind of mindset shifts that we've been talking about and, bolster those governance frameworks and, all the other points that we made? Sam, we'll start with you.
Set realistic expectations. There is so much hype out there about AI, and we've been very optimistic on this podcast, but it gets things wrong. It's not perfect. It's not the right tool for every task. If your approach to this is, how could this make a small but meaningful impact on my daily life, you will find that there's so much to benefit from in the use of this technology. So setting expectations is absolutely key.
As a lawyer, I'd say it's going to impact every area of practice. So even if you're not an AI advisory lawyer, but you're a disputes lawyer, in 5 years, our disputes are going to involve AI. So understanding how the tech works now and then thinking about how it's going to impact your legal practice, I think is going to be quite important and will be a differentiator for people coming through.
Yeah. Chelsea Gordon, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
And Sam Burrett, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to the listener for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please give us a rating and review on whatever platform you use to listen to podcasts, as it'll help other lawyers discover and enjoy this show. And if you've got ideas for other episodes we can run, please get in touch at editor@lawyersweekly.com.au. You can also reach us on social media. See you again next time.